Okay, got things going.
Yeah, so do I. Oh, my waves are a little higher this time.
Yeah, There's probably a little bit more gain, a little bit more waves.
Yeah, it's a little higher. It's not super high, but at least it's hopefully better in post.
Yeah, it'll be
Yet
fine.
again, Steven handles all the post work, so it's his magic that you hear at the end of all
I don't
this.
know if I call it magic, but I mean, I just throw some shit together.
It makes us sound better than we sound in real life, so that's always a positive.
Hopefully. Well, welcome back, guys. We're here on this Cinema Discovery Project. I think we're getting closer and closer to our 50th episode. I think this is like close to 40. I think it's like 36 or 37.
Right. We are past the third mark to 100, I guess. Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
For those of you who are not mathematicians at home, if you divide 100 by 3, it's 33.3 repeating forever.
Yes.
That's what it breaks down
Forever.
to. I love seeing that on a calculator. It just goes 3 all the way.
What's a calculator?
More time. A calculator used to be an instrument that we used to use in math classes to do math problems.
Oh,
with.
yeah.
It was better than doing numbers in your head.
I haven't been to school in a long time, so I don't know what any of that stuff is.
What is crazy is that I'm surprised calculators are still around because they literally are an essential part of everyone's cell phone on the planet.
Yes.
And
well, I mean, you got to keep
someone
kids
does.
away from the cell phone. So
I guess so, but they made us buy really expensive graphing calculators when I was like a junior in high school, because we were doing junior or senior, because when we were doing like geometry and algebra 2, and we had to do sine and cosine and all that mathematical nonsense. They were like, oh yeah, you need to buy this $100 graphing calculator that you'll probably never use again unless you go to college.
I still have mine.
I still had mine, and I think I gave it to my brother, and I've never seen it since.
You don't need to see it again.
I haven't needed it since freshman year in college, circa 2006.
But yeah, well, on from that boring math stuff.
I know.
Today's
Let's get
episode,
into something that's more delicious.
Yeah, today's episode. If you see the title, we're going to be spotlighting Oldboy. I think this is like maybe our 8th or 9th spotlight, something like that.
It is somewhere around there. But before we get into it, there's just one piece of, I would say, important movie news to get
got
through.
A few news bits for you first.
Yeah, the first one is now he's the late, but Peter Fonda passed away, who is most notoriously an actor. He's been around for decades, but he's the son of legendary Henry Fonda, the brother of Jane Fonda, the father of Bridget Fonda. So the Fonda family is one of those Hollywood legacy families that have been around for a very long time, and he's passed away at, I believe, the age 79.
79, yeah.
And he died from complications of lung cancer. He had lung failure, which was a result of lung cancer. Yeah. Respiratory failure, I think, is the fancy term, but he died from cancer, as many people do. And what is interesting is we're losing a lot more of these old names now, more than ever. I feel like it's like every other month or every other week there's a fancy legacy name that unfortunately has passed away because it's that time. And we've talked about it many times here on the Cinema Discovery Project, because they all tend to tie into the history of movies. So that's what we're trying to spotlight here. But it's really sad that he's gone, because I always think of him in his younger form, because I watched Easy Rider a lot, over the last several years. That was kind of my big introduction into 70s independent cinema, or in that era. Granted, it came out in the late 60s, but it was right around that era where things began to change in Hollywood, which we've gone over a few times. But Easy Rider is one of his most, I would say, well-known films, directed by also the late great Hopper. I can't remember his first name, but it's completely, he's part of that legacy of people. I mean, a lot of people know Jane Fonda, but a lot of people know Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda just had a whole day worth of movies that were marathoning on Turner Classic Movies, because he is so well remembered. Yeah, Dennis Hopper was the name I couldn't remember. Don't ask me why I blanked on that, because I know Dennis Hopper so well, because he was in Blue Velvet and things like that. He passed away like
A few years ago.
about a decade ago.
Has it been that long?
Certain. I want to say.
I think it's like 4 years ago, maybe.
4 years. You have to be wary of when you think of 4 years, because we're approaching 2020 really soon. But I think Dennis Hopper passed away 2010.
Damn.
9 years ago.
Jeez.
Damn, Steve, you.
I'm so old. But yeah, I mean, with Henry Fonda, with me, I mean, I've seen Easy Rider.
Right.
But honestly, I think I remember him most for some of his character work later in life, where he played side characters a lot. Like he was in 3:10 to Yuma. He played one of the lawmen that was going after.
Yes, he did.
And he just had this look that was that you when you saw him, he was this manly man type of character in that movie. I just
he was just Easy Rider, the image of just he and Dennis Hopper riding on motorcycles, born to be wild, and just that freedom and that 60s era of like hippie, free love and free drugs and all that kind of stuff. It's like he comes from that bygone era, and he's always had that sense of like coolness about him. You know what I mean? And yeah, he actually still, according to IMDb, has a movie that still needs to come out, or 2 movies that still need to come out. One is completed, called The Magic Hours, and the other was called The Last Full Measure.
Okay.
And
The Last Full Measure I've heard of. That's something.
Yeah, The Magic Hour just says completed. I don't know if it's been distributed or if it's one of those that just
who's
sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Last Full Measure. Who's that? Who's involved in that? That sounds familiar.
Let me go take a look. The Last Full Measure. Let's see. Directed by Todd Robinson. 34 years after his death, Airman William H. Pitsenbarger Jr. is awarded the nation's highest military honor for his actions on the battlefield.
Well, I mean,
it sounds like a war movie.
The cast is pretty nice. I'm looking at it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Sebastian Stan, Bradley Whitford, Sam Jackson, Ed Harris, Christopher Plummer,
Alison Sudol,
William Hurt,
damn, Michael Imperial,
Amy Madigan.
Holy man!
It's a pretty big cast. So yeah,
it really is. When is it supposed to? I don't even know when it's supposed to come out. Well, it says October 25th. Yes, October 25th. That's what it says. Interesting. I wonder when we're going to see a trailer for that, or if there is one. There isn't one available yet. Weird.
Or if it's even coming out this year.
Yeah, who knows?
Could be one of them late January movies.
Yeah, who knows? It could be a super limited release. We are not quite sure.
But it is. But back to the initial. Yeah. It's sad. It's always sad to see somebody that's made such a mark leave us, and yeah.
Yeah, and I know Jane Fonda had very nice things to say, obviously, about her brother. I think she was there when he passed, because I think the press release or something like that was like, surrounded by family and friends when he passed away and whatnot.
I said something about he was smiling when he died or something like that.
Yeah. Which is, it's nice that he went out peacefully, hopefully, and not, in any type of agony. That would be really, really nice.
But,
yeah. But yeah, let's get into... I guess that's the only piece of there's other stuff, but it's better if we just get into
Let's get into the movie.
Get into it now, because it's a movie we really have to dive into and take a lot of stock in. But before we get into it, like I always like to say, let's give some background. This film is a Korean film, so there are subtitles in it. For those of you who are not subtitle enthusiasts like Steven and I, yeah, you will have to read subtitles.
I will say
there is an English dub, but honestly, don't watch it. Don't listen to an English dub.
I had to go. This movie is actually kind of hard to find if you want to buy it, like a good version of it. You can get a DVD. DVDs are out there, but if you want a Blu-ray, that's kind of hard. They're a little.
Are they out of print?
I mean, they're not. They might be, but I know that they're kind of. They're just a little expensive on the expensive side.
Yeah, I have an old Blu-ray I was telling Steven about that came out in like 2007. So we're talking like the early days of Blu-ray, and I probably bought it probably like 2012, 2013, around there. Also around that time, there was a 10th anniversary Blu-ray edition, also put out by the same company called Tartan.
Yeah.
I think it's Tartan Releasing or something like that. It's like their Asia Extreme like brand.
Yeah.
And they had a 10th anniversary release, and they also had around that time a box set of like called the Vengeance trilogy.
Yeah.
Because Oldboy is the middle film in Chan-wook Park's The Vengeance trilogy. And it's a trilogy not in the traditional sense. There aren't characters in each movie that, follow along a plot or anything like that. Basically, each movie is just about vengeance and the consequences of vengeance.
It's a thematic stuff. A thematic trilogy.
It's a thematic trilogy.
Yeah.
And the first one was called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. Second one is Oldboy. And the third film is Lady Vengeance.
Yes.
Pretty cool names, if you ask me.
Oh, yeah.
Chan-wook Park kind of got his name because of Oldboy, at least here in the United States and here in this part of the world, the English-speaking world. I feel like that's where people really discovered him.
Yeah, it's as I was saying before, if you want to check this out, I found it actually on Vudu for free.
Vudu has a lot
for free.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So if you want to check this out and watch this before we get into the movie, because if you know our spotlights, we do spoil the movies.
Yeah. And honestly, if you've never seen this movie before, don't read the spoilers. Don't read the plot synopsis. Don't read.
Yeah. Don't
spoilers
look into the movie at all. Yeah.
Because probably the best part of this movie is going into it with as little to no knowledge about it at all, because the twists in it are so great.
Yes.
Like they'll turn your head so much, like your head will like pop off.
Yes.
It's crazy twists. But Chan-wook Park is kind of known for these type of more visceral type films, for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, he also had a movie called Thirst, which I think came out in 2009, which is about like a vampire priest. It's a pretty great film. I have the DVD, and the Blu-ray just came out by Kino a few months ago. So I have to get that. I just have to get that.
And Handmaiden.
Handmaiden is
amazing. I got that. After watching Oldboy, which we could really quick talk about this new release of Oldboy that's coming out. You
want to do that now?
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way.
Yeah, so basically, Oldboy, the old Blu-ray that I have doesn't look particularly great. I think the 10th anniversary edition was the same transfer, maybe, I don't know. But Arrow recently announced that they were putting out their version of it with a new 4K remaster, which I've seen the trailer for, and it looks amazing. The trailer looks better than my Blu-ray. It looks amazing. But they announced it a few months ago that it was supposed to come out this August, which is around now. And they announced I think it was like a 2-disc edition and a 3-disc edition. And the 3-disc edition had more special features and things like that. Yeah. But the problem with that is that some of the special features that they listed were special features that they did not have the rights to. They were special features that were part of another company's release of Oldboy, another company called Plain Archive, who releases Korean releases. Yeah. In South Korea, their releases are really beautiful, like very beautiful, unique packaging. Talk about package art here that we kind of get stiffed on. Their package art looks amazing, and their stuff is really beautiful. And you can pretty much only get it by like buying from like that part of the world, which can get expensive when it comes to like shipping and all of that stuff. But they had some exclusive rights to like a couple of audio commentaries, some interviews by people who were involved with the film, and when Arrow announced that they were also releasing their release with these special features included, Plain Archive on Twitter was like, we have the rights to this, like international rights to this. How did you acquire them? And from what I've heard since then is that Arrow was not able to get the rights for those special features, so they've had to amend their release of Oldboy. So instead of a 2-disc and a 3-disc edition, which was supposed to come out this month, they pushed it a month, and there's going to be a 2-disc and a now 4-disc edition coming out in late September. Yeah. But the 4-disc edition also includes Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance as well. So you kind of get a new version Vengeance trilogy. Yeah. And I'm not sure if those are straight up remasters or anyway. I know they're mastered in 1080p, which is HD, but I don't know if they're like the old Korean
Yeah.
releases or the stuff we got here from Tartan or whatnot. All I know is that those films are included with the special features that were included on those discs. So you're getting a lot, but that was a whole big mix-up, and it's kind of interesting that we bring that up because we talk about Blu-ray releases so much, and sometimes you run into rights problems with different editions in different countries. Some have rights here in the United States, some have rights in the UK, some have rights in Japan and Korea and all those places. So it's very interesting how that's a problem. And I know Steven has put in a pre-order for the Oldboy.
Yeah, I put in a pre-order for the 3-disc. I'm based off of what I've seen, automatically I should be getting upgraded to that 4-disc edition. So hopefully that's all good. I haven't gotten an email or anything about my order being canceled. So I'm pretty sure I'm good. But
worst case scenario is that nothing ever comes.
Well, the thing is I think they already took my money. That's the thing.
Oh,
that's the thing.
That's the worst.
That's the thing is if they already took my money, then I definitely goddamn well be getting something.
Yeah,
but
straight.
Because when you order straight from Arrow, I think they usually charge you right away.
Yeah, it's not like Amazon where they only charge you
when
ship. They've shipped the item.
Yeah.
If they never ship it, they never charge you.
Yeah.
But at least that's pretty much their unified policy across the board. I saw, for some reason on some forums I saw that Amazon UK was charging people 5 days after they placed the order, but apparently that wasn't true. I don't know. That's just an aside. So the movie is not that easy to get a hold of, but as Steven said, you can find it on Vudu.
Out of all the places I thought I was going to find a way to watch this movie, I didn't think it was going to be on Vudu, but it's on there. It's got ads in it, but
oh, that sucks.
It's annoying, but if you really want to watch the movie,
you can buy. For those of you who really want that physical copy, you can buy the same Blu-ray I have currently on Amazon USA for $22, which is expensive for a Blu-ray that is now 12 years old.
Yeah.
But that seems to happen with foreign releases a lot, where their prices don't drop significantly for foreign films because there's just not a big market for it. So they got to make as much money as they can. The Handmaiden was we talked about that briefly. The only reason why I've never bought The Handmaiden is because the Blu-ray we have here in the States has absolutely no special features.
I just bought
it. Doesn't go below like $20.
I just bought the I think it's Artificial Eye release.
Oh, you went foreign. You went over.
Oh yes, you know me, man. I'm going. I go for the big thing. So yeah, I
gotta look into that.
I got the. I just ordered it actually. That and I ordered.
I'm looking at it right now.
I ordered Stalker. A Stoker.
A Stoker is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I've talked about Stoker sometimes. I've talked about it recently on one of my videos on my channel because Stoker was Chan-wook Park making an American film.
Yeah.
It's got American actors in it. It's in English. It's him kind of transporting his weird Asian sensibilities when it comes to what he's putting in his films, kind of the creepy sexual
I was gonna say
stuff.
He's got
it's very sexual,
psychosexual movies,
psychosexual violent movies, and bringing him over here, and that's kind of why I love Stoker so much because it's like unlike any other Hollywoodized movie.
I was gonna say
when we get into Oldboy, you'll see a lot of sexual.
He's
stuff.
also
this movie's very sexual.
Yeah, he's also a producer of Snowpiercer. He was a producer on that movie.
That makes sense because I think him and Bong Joon-ho are like great friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say they must be buddies because they have a similar style.
They do have a very similar style. What is interesting, Bong Joon-ho did a Criterion Closet video when he was coming out with Snowpiercer, I think, and he talked about how I think he let Chan-wook Park borrow I think of his edition of Picnic at Hanging Rock or something like that, and he never got it back from him, so he mentioned that, and I was like,
that's fucked up.
That's pretty hilarious. It's either a Picnic at Hanging Rock or some other movie. All I know is he picked up Picnic at Hanging Rock, and he was like, it's his favorite Peter Weir movie. I remember that from that. But with all of that being said, let's finally get into...
Let's do it.
Oldboy. This movie is... very talked about. I remember hearing about this movie before I saw this movie from people who had seen it and were like, you gotta watch it. It's amazing. And my first time into watching it was, I think, on Netflix like around 2012, 2013, because Netflix had it.
Yeah.
And they had the English dub and they had the original Korean track as well. So I watched it there for the first time, and I think I've seen it once or twice afterward on Blu-ray, and I think it still holds up. Like, I watched it again last night for this episode, and it's still really, really good.
Yeah. I think I saw it for the first time right around before the remake. The remake came out.
Okay,
which was
so we have to mention it.
Yeah, we have to.
I guess we should.
So 10 years later, Spike Lee remade this movie.
Yes. Yes, he did, with Josh Brolin, Samuel L. Jackson was
Or was
in
it 10? Was it 10 years later?
Yeah, I think it came out 2013.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Josh Brolin plays the main character, and Spike Lee, out of all directors, wanted to remake this movie. I thought it to be not that great compared to the original, of course, but you know.
I never watched it.
It's
I
not,
honestly never watched it.
It's not as impactful. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just.
Well, it's tough because this movie is so reliant on its mystery and its twist that if you're going to remake this movie, you can't mess with that too much.
Yeah.
Or else you kind of lose what the fabric of this movie is. You know what I mean? And we know that twist is coming in the Oldboy remake. I mean, it has to be in there. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I assume it's in there.
Yeah.
And it was one thing where I think he's friends with Chan-wook Park, so like he got his blessing and stuff like that. But it's another thing. It's a whole discussion for a different podcast episode where it's like, do certain like foreign films, not need to be remade, but how do they hold up being remade into an English language version or a Hollywood version or things like that? Because it happens very often. It's not, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I mean, sometimes it's just a wash. But I think in this case, for me, and that's even someone who hasn't seen the American version, I don't think it needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think
people can watch this movie and it not being in English doesn't affect
honestly,
how amazing it is.
Honestly, it's kind of a simple story. Most revenge stories are, but like you said, it's the mystery that kind of keeps you enthralled in this film. Because giving the simple synopsis of this before we get into the going through the movie, there's a man who suddenly gets abducted and gets imprisoned in this room for 15 years. And then after 15 years, he's let out, he's given clothes, he's given a cell phone, and he's basically, from then on, trying to figure out why he was imprisoned. And that's the movie. I mean, and there's a lot more to it, of course, but, it's about this man seeking revenge, trying to seek out the truth of why he was taken. So, yeah, I mean, it's...
Yeah, and it goes into, like, the reasons why and who did it and all that stuff, which we'll get into right now. So it starts off with our main character, his name is Odae Soo. It starts off right away. He's been arrested. He's at a police station. He's
drunk as fuck.
Kind of a drunken mess, an absolute mess. And the actor who plays Odae Soo is Min-sik Choi, and he is a really good actor. Like, he's fantastic in this movie. He was in another movie called I Saw the Devil, which is another good Korean film, and that movie's even darker than this one.
I was going to say, which one is filthier?
Let me put it this way. I can rewatch Oldboy way more than I can rewatch
I Saw the Devil's pretty hard to watch.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to watch. This film is not as graphic in comparison, despite of how graphic it is. So it starts off with him at a police station. He's a drunken mess. He's fighting with police. He's got, like, a bloody nose. We're not quite sure, like, what happened to him. My guess is he got really, really drunk and did stupid shit. Yeah. That's my guess. And it's just kind of a series of cuts of him being a reckless monster, basically. And then his friend comes and picks him up. His friend called Ju Hwan. He comes and picks him up, and he's telling the police, thank you for letting him go and all this kind of stuff. And basically, Odae Soo tells him to go F off, and he runs out of the police station. So they go to a payphone, because back in 2003, when this film first came out, payphones were still around. Cell phones hadn't taken over.
Hey, there's still some payphones out there.
Very true, but not in an abundance as they were back then.
Yeah.
So they're at a payphone, and he's talking to his family. He's talking to his daughter, who's having, I believe, her third or fourth
I think
birthday.
her fourth birthday.
Yeah, her fourth birthday. And he's like, basically, I'm gonna be there soon. Happy birthday! I've got a present for you. All this kind of stuff. What the present that he has is like these fake like angel wings that you put on and they kind of flap or whatever. And he was describing it to like the police in the first like sequence, and it was really hilarious because he's just a drunken mess like making like whooping sounds like showing the wings off. Yeah, it's really hilarious. So his friend Juwan gets on the phone, talks to his wife, and is like, "Yeah, we're gonna." He talks to the daughter. And the wife wants to talk to him. And what happens is Odesu, leaves the telephone, booth, and then while his friend's on the phone, the camera begins to pan, and it begins to pan from like a side back shot to like just a full shot, moving from right to left of just you. All you see is the friend in the booth, and Odesu becomes off screen. So right away we're getting a sense of how Chan-wook Park likes to utilize camera movement to tell his stories, because in most films, perhaps you would have seen a capture, you would have seen an abduction.
Yeah.
What we don't see is we don't see that. We just know that it happens off screen. So it pans, and his friend then turns around and says, "Hey, your wife wants to talk to you." And Ode, where are you? And then he says like, "Where are you? Where are you?" And then you get like, the camera pans above, and all you see is just people with umbrellas.
Well, you see the president on the ground, didn't it? Right?
And then you see the president on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's all you see. And then the next shot and the next sequence, I believe, is him. He's in that room that we talked about, where he's pleading with the captor through the trap door, saying like, "Oh, I've already been here 3 months. What am I doing here?" Da, da, da. The usual things you would say if you're captured. Going but crazy because you've been captured. I mean, kind of a reaction. But we get the sense that, at least from right at the beginning, that Odesu is not that good of a guy. You know what I mean? We get this sense right away.
He's a fuck up.
Yeah, and this is one of those films where our protagonist is, in a gray area. He's not a white knight. He's a gray knight. He's a murky guy. He does, messed up things, and he's, not that good of a person to begin with. And there's also this kind of theme of like that he's a monster throughout this movie. And that monster kind of like grows and manifests with him as he goes down his journey of vengeance. And that crops up a few times in his actions and just his thought processes. So he basically is trapped in this room, like we said, and he is there for 15 years. And what he's doing in that 15-year time is eating fried dumplings and watching television.
Yeah.
But every I don't know if it's every night or whatever, is that there's this gas that's filtered into this room through this pipe, and it knocks him out, and then people come in and like clean up his room or like change his clothes, or sometimes we see him like there's a montage. I think there's him where he tries to kill himself several times.
Yeah,
and they gotta gas him and like fix him up.
It's probably every few days or maybe a week. I wouldn't think it would happen unless there's something they notice that needs to be done. They don't probably do it, but because they have to they shave him at one point, change his clothes,
because his hair grows. And there's a great shot of just him staring at this painting where it's just this freakishly looking painting, and then it's just him staring at it. You just get a full on like close up shot of him smiling with this hair all crazy. He looks like he's completely insane.
Yeah.
And there's this quote on this painting that's really important that I want to make sure I remember, because it comes up again in the film. And
are you talking about the grain of salt, sand?
No. It's the one
about the beast.
It's this one. It's the laugh and the world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because there's there's the idea that the vengeance is like a lonely path, or when you go down the path of vengeance, dig 2 graves.
Nobody wins. Yeah,
all that kind of stuff, and it's really interesting how that quote kind of comes up again and again.
Yeah, and
throughout the film.
Yeah, throughout this time in imprisoned, some things happen. I mean, he goes through different stages. He, at one point, when he starts to, I think, really start to feel the insanity is when he starts to see ants popping up under his skin.
Yeah, and it looks like when they go in after they gas him, it looks like they drug him or take blood samples from him, because what they end up doing actually is they end up framing him for the murder of his wife.
Yeah.
Which is very fascinating to me. Like, they take his fingerprints from a cup that he uses.
Yeah.
I guess they took some of his blood or whatever to put on the crime scene. So they basically framed him for the death of his wife. And that doesn't really come up later on in the film. Like, it's kind of just mentioned after when he gets out, but it doesn't really play a role. But like Stephen was saying, he does go through phases where he starts writing in notebooks, like writing like every single person that he thinks he's wronged in his life, to see who could be the one capturing him. He starts shadowboxing with the wall.
His training.
And it's just basically training, I guess,
for when he gets out.
When he gets out. And then there's parts where he is just like using the chopsticks that he gets to eat his fried dumplings to kind of like basically Shawshank his way out of there.
Yeah, well, and he also of course
grinding away at the walls and stuff.
Yeah, and of course he also gets lonely and decides he decides to masturbate to women on TV.
Which, I mean, I when you're desperate, I guess that's something you have to do. But it's kind of the first sexual moment of the movie, actually.
Yeah.
Is masturbation. Very interesting. And he does that, but he basically he learns everything through television. All the big events that have happened. There's a montage of like Korean political elections, and 9/11 happens, and all of these things. And while all this time is going by, he's slowly making his way out of there. And it gets to the point where he's basically about like a month away in his timeline from when he can fully escape. Like, he finally reaches the point where he knocks a brick out of the side of a wall, and he like puts his hand out and it's raining, and he can like finally, like for the first time in years, basically be outside for split seconds. And and right after he does that is he gets gassed again, and then a woman comes in and hypnotizes him, and she tells him to imagine himself like in a field or something like that. Or there's trees or things like that, and he ends up in a giant suitcase type thing, like a trunk, in the middle of a field, and he breaks out of it, and he is now free. But he's actually not in a field. He's on a rooftop.
He's on a rooftop.
And what is interesting is the film starts with him at this moment. The film starts with him like holding someone like off of a ledge, and we're now up to this moment of the film. Like, the film's caught up, and so he gets up, and there's a guy that was about to commit suicide with his dog, and Odesu is kind of like doesn't know how to approach him, is like touching him and sniffing him, and like can't believe that he's real and not an illusion. And basically the guy's about to like throw himself off, and Odesu holds him, and the guy says something interesting. He says, "Even though I am no better than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" That's interesting because that comes up much later in the film.
Well, it plays into what you were talking about how, even though that he's a monster and he's dealing with becoming more monstrous throughout the movie, but does that mean that he should be dead, or should I mean, bad? There has to be bad people to be good people, right?
Well, yeah, the film does deal with this duality of good and evil and those things like that, and Chan-wook Park is really playing with those a lot, and all within the Odesu character, and it's a little rough going starting off here. Like I said, like, he doesn't know quite how to act around people, and actually Odesu recounts like everything that happened to him so far with this guy before he leaves him, and the guy's like about to tell him why he's about to commit suicide. Odesu just leaves.
He just leaves. He's like, I don't give a shit.
So just leaves him on the rooftop, and he goes down this elevator, and there's this woman in this elevator, and he's like basically glued to like the corner, and he's just bracing for dear life. And part of me has always, I don't know if I've ever misread this scene, or if it's just, is it him resisting the urge to like sexually jump on this woman, or is it him like reacting to being in an elevator?
I think it was him.
Or is it both?
I think it was sexual.
You think it was sexual?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's the way
it plays into what happens later.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to, he starts screaming on his way down this elevator, and then it cuts to him outside, and he's walking away, and this woman's talking to this, I guess, security guard guy. It's what he kind of looked like.
Yeah.
And just telling him about, like, oh, this guy, pointing at him and talking, and then when Odesu's walking away, and then as he's walking away, the guy who was going to commit suicide does commit suicide, lands on the car, and I don't know if you noticed it, but the dog, like, that he had with him is clearly a stuffed animal. Like, it is clearly a stuffed animal.
Hilarious.
That they used to, like, to with it, because just the way it, like, it's smaller than the dog, and just the way it moves like a stuffed animal.
Mm-hmm.
But I just noticed that, like, a bunch of times, and it makes me feel better that an actual, dog didn't die. But I mean, they wouldn't have killed the dog in the movie, but like in the movie's timeline, it looks because it looks fake. It doesn't look real, so I'm able to distance myself from it.
Mm-hmm.
So Odesu is now out. He's now free, and basically he is. I think in one of the next sequences is when he's confronted by a bunch of like street hoodlums, like a bunch of thugs, and he's basically, this is his first time to test out his fighting skills. You know what I mean? He's been shadowboxing the walls for 15 years or so, or however many years. Now it's time to see if any of that actually works. And what is interesting is that throughout the film there's an inner monologue inside Odesu's head where he's pretty much saying the things that we would say, like, oh, time to test out my fighting skills in real life, or something like that.
It's kind of like Fight Club. Where
that's his fighting style is very much like Fight Club.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, the fact that he's narrating his own story.
Yes.
Like, so yeah, I mean, he meets these hoodlums, and there's like at least 6 of them, I think, maybe like 6, and he takes them out. Apparently it works.
Yeah, they initially kind of beat him up, but then he gets up and takes them out, and then the next thing is we see him. I think he's in a store window or something. He's in a window or for somewhere, and then like a homeless person gives him like a wallet full of money and a cell phone. And this is when he goes into this sushi shop where we meet Mido, who is another main character in this film. She is apparently some kind of wonderkind chef who he saw on TV, because when he gets out, he sometimes some of the things he says to people are like quotes from like television that he's seen, like television programs and all those kinds of things. And apparently she's like a television chef or something like that. So he's in the sushi shop, and they strike up a conversation, and she says things like like women aren't supposed to be sushi chefs because their hands are too warm or something like that. And he says he wants to eat something that's alive, which is kind of weird to me, Steve. I don't know about you. I don't like to eat living things.
No, not particularly, no.
No, but what happens is while he's there is he gets a phone call on that mystery cell phone that is given to him, and the first thing he asks is, I think it wasn't the first thing he asked, like who is this, or something like that, or like it's basically the guy who captured him. And the guy doesn't tell Odesu who he is or why he imprisons him or anything like that. But this is the one where he says the grain part, the quote that you mentioned before, which is a pretty great quote. What's the quote again, Steven?
I don't know. Something about salt and sand they both sink in water or something. I don't know, man. I'm terrible with quotes.
It killed me, Smalls. But let's move on. But right after that, 1, he's making a scene at a public restaurant. Yeah. 2, she gives him
a live
after
octopus.
He gets off the phone. She gives him an octopus, and it's wriggling. And she's like, "I'll cut it up for you," because apparently, like, that's something that
it's a delicacy.
It's a delicacy where they don't eat it alive. They eat it when it's, cut up and whatnot. Kind of like sushi, I guess. And he's like, nope, no, I'm just going to take it right now.
Well, that's part of the, the idea of him being this, like, beast.
Monster.
He's a beast, and he what do wild animals do? Eat other animals that are alive.
Yeah, but what's interesting is right before that, she touches his hand, and he notices it. Like there's an obvious connection. That physical connection right there is important. Keep that in mind for later, because this whole sequence is actually very important. Keep that in mind for later. So she gives him the octopus, and he eats it raw. He like bites it off, and it's all like wriggling in his mouth. He's got the tentacles in his hands, and then he passes out, which yet again, we think at the time is due for like medical reasons, but it's really, there's more to it that yet again like gets revealed later on.
Yeah.
So this is a film that goes back on itself to change context of certain scenes that we read completely differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's kind of one of the more brilliant aspects of the film. And then he wakes up after he collapses. He wakes up in
her apartment.
Yeah. And he's like lying there, and she's pretty much taken care of him since he collapsed, and basically, this is a point where they had this weird conversation, where I think he tell her about his daughter, or is it afterward? Because I know afterward they go to try to find his daughter. But this is the scene I think that you were referencing earlier, Stephen, where he basically tries to sexually
assault her while she's taking a piss.
Yeah, while she's on the toilet, and immediately he regrets it, and he is, I guess, upset with himself about it. But what is very interesting is the way in which she reacts to it. One is, obviously she rejects him, but then she says like there's gonna come like a point where this may happen again, and you know what I mean, like there's gonna be like I'm gonna sing a specific song, and that'll be like your cue, or something like
basically
that.
she's telling him, I'm gonna eventually not now but whenever I'm ready I will have sex with you.
Basically something like that. And
which is odd. It seems very odd.
It's a very odd movie. Well, I mean, it's a very odd sexual movie. I guess that was preparing us for odd sexual things to happen later. So this is when he tries to go and find his daughter, and they basically find out that that after his wife died, she went to live like with a foster family in Sweden. In like Stockholm, Sweden, and that's kind of where she is. I think she sends letters back to this woman that they go see. It's really unclear, and they kind of brush over it, but it's obviously much more important later on. Yeah, his daughter was adopted by a Swedish couple, but he gives up trying to contact her, and now he's trying to figure out who captured him. This is the sequence in the film where he's actually going around to a bunch of different Chinese restaurants
trying to find the dumplings.
Trying to find the dumplings. He ate the same dumplings for 15 years, so he knows specifically how they taste. So there's like a montage of him going to every single Chinese restaurant he can. He's got a whole list that he keeps checking off.
I hope he
keeps eating them, and then he keeps like throwing up because he just can't take the dumplings.
I was gonna say, like, I hope they gave him some other food, because there's other certain essential vitamins and things that you need. I mean, he ain't even getting any sunlight.
I know, like there's no, like how does he? Yeah, he must have a vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah,
must have. I mean, there's nothing in there for him. Not even a sun lamp or anything. No. Like that really. Yeah, if you don't get sunlight or are exposed to certain vitamins over a long amount of time, it could have detrimental.
Yeah. He wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't be beating people up. I can tell you that.
And now we don't know if they gave him like a multivitamin.
Maybe the gas had the vitamins.
Well, apparently the gas. What's interesting is it's kind of a throwaway. It's like, oh yeah, this is what the Russians used for to torture Chechen terrorists or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay,
that's cool.
And like apparently, is there any adverse effect to exposing someone to that for 15 years straight? I don't know.
It made him, maybe it helped make him crazy. I don't know.
It probably
part of it, yeah, maybe.
Probably did. I mean, yeah, that definitely did. So he goes around to every Chinese restaurant, like we were saying, and he finally finds one where it's like the furthest one. It's called like the Blue Dragon. So he follows a delivery man back to basically the building that he was captured in, and this is where the action really kicks into gear.
This is probably the most recognizable scene in the movie.
Yeah, I've rewatched this scene like a million times on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
it's the hallway scene.
Pretty epic.
You know how
it's
like
the hallway scene.
Yeah. You know how like nowadays in a lot, especially like the Marvel TV series movies and like some of these more recent action movies, there's always a hallway scene where we follow with like one camera a guy kicking somebody's ass. Where this is where it kind of like I think the beginning of that started maybe.
Yeah.
The hallway kick-ass scene.
Before we get to the hallway scene, is he finds out that if you what's interesting is when he gets to when he follows the delivery guy into the elevator, you get to basically like this floor in between floors.
Yeah.
Where by pressing like a certain two numbers, and that's how you get to this specific floor. Where apparently this is kind of messed up, Steven, is you can like pay to have people incarcerated for like an amount of time, and that's pretty
fucked up.
Yeah. Pretty fucked up. So he goes in there and he sees the guy who's like he like runs the place. He's monitoring like all the different like security camera feeds in all the rooms and all this kind of stuff. And he basically tortures the guy. He ties him up. He has a hammer and he starts like taking out like his teeth until the guy like to get the guy to like confess to.
So for every year I was stuck in here, I'm gonna take a tooth.
I'm gonna remove a tooth, and he basically knocks out his front teeth, and then. The guy basically tells him like, it was somebody I never saw him or anything or something like that. But apparently like he finds out that the reason why Odesu was captured is because he was quote talking too much. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
We'll see more about that
but
later.
While Odesu is making his way out, he sees a hallway full of dudes ready to kick his ass. And this is when we get the hallway scene, which we just talk about. It's a couple of minutes long. It's all one shot, and it's all done by basically I would say dollying, but I would say panning from basically left to right, right to left, and all you see is just him fighting a bunch of people with a hammer, and it's
a sideways, it's a parallel tracking shot. Yeah, and it's tracking shot. Yeah, and it's. Hammer time, as we would say. Yeah, there's got to be a video out there of this scene with MC Hammer playing over it.
With MC Hammer playing Hammer Time.
Yeah.
Like that just seems like gold to me.
Yeah. It's got to be out there.
But he fights all these guys. He takes them all out, and he gets to the elevator to leave. And there's a bunch of dudes in the elevator, and what is interesting, he just smiles.
Yeah.
And you can see this guy's a sadistic man. Like he is psycho. Like he's been pushed way beyond the limits of normal human capacity. And basically, the next scene is him. The elevator dings, the elevator doors open. It's just a wide shot where
dudes just fall out.
Just fall out, and he walks over them.
He just Captain America. He just Captain America them in the elevator.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. He's even like stabbed in this as well.
Yeah, he gets stabbed. He gets stabbed in the back in the initial hallway scene.
Yeah, and he fights all these dudes with a knife sticking out of his back, like a badass, basically. So what we find, and then he starts walking around the streets, and he's like he's bleeding, like he's obviously bleeding pretty profusely, and he's like stumbling, and then he just collapses in the middle of the road, and this dude picks him up and puts him in a cab, and says, go to, such and basically he gives like the apartment and like the.
Well, somebody was going to take him somewhere, I think the hospital, and then he says go to the girl's place.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then he mentions him by name. He calls him Odesu.
Yeah.
And then this is when we find out, that's revealed for the first time, that this is
a game.
This is the guy. This is probably the guy who was his captor. And
Well, he keeps meeting these people that obviously know that are involved in what's going on. Like you said earlier, the guy that gives him the phone, and now this guy who picks him up off the street and gets him in a cab knows what's going on. So
no, but I think it's the actual guy.
is it actual? Was it the actual guy?
Yeah, because we learned that. Well, later on we learned that the guy's name is Li Wu Jin, but I think it's him because he's wearing that hat.
Yeah, he was wearing a hat.
Coat
Yeah,
and coat and whatnot. And he's taken to, the girl's apartment where she patches him up. Like he wakes up and she's there like asleep next to him and whatnot. But he's all bandaged up. And is this the part? I think this is the part where, that he goes to like the internet cafe, and he meets with his friend Ju Huan, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And what is interesting is that we learn we get like a scene with Li Wu Jin like by himself, and like he knows like what his next step is going to be. Like he knows like, oh, you're gonna go to the internet cafe. That's his next step. It's very calculated the way that Li Wu Jin thinks throughout this movie, and we get more of him later on. Like there's moments where he's just expositioning dumping, and it's like dumping his master plan, and we see like how all of these things like interconnect with one another. It's really fascinating. Mm-hmm. So he goes and meets with his friend Ju Huan, because there was a scene in there. I don't know if it was after that or if it was when they were looking for the dumplings, where she's like video chatting with somebody, and that somebody knows who like sees him, and it's like, oh, Odesu, is that you or something like that? And they're trying to find this guy with the online alias called Evergreen. Mm-hmm. Steven, am I on the right track here?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why he goes to this internet cafe to talk to his friend, to track this person down and to figure out what Evergreen means. And I think we are at the point where we start going about like his old high school and stuff like that, or does Li Wu Jin confront him and give him like a deadline before that? I want to say that this whole high school stuff happens before Li Wu Jin gives him his 5-day like deadline.
Yeah.
They're going through like all the things like that this like Evergreen is about, and they come up with this old high school. And it was a high school that Odesu was at, Ju Huan was at, and then they go into kind of like a flashback of like when he was there and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really interesting because the aesthetic is different. It's kind of like almost like
dreamlike,
not muted, like opaque. How would I say? Not opaque. Sepia tone. That's what I wanted to say. Like a sepia tone version of it. It's really, really interesting. We get we get a little bit of backstory here. We don't get the full reveal yet of the backstory. That doesn't happen until later on in the movie. Yeah.
We talking about what he sees it through a window?
Yeah, because I don't think that doesn't happen until later on when he's given that 5-day, like, Li Wu Jin, like, basically tells him, oh, no, you know what it is? They track, yeah, because, okay, things are running into one another. They track, like, where that person is, that Evergreen person, and it's Li Wu Jin, and they're, like, in that, like, abandoned, like apartment or whatever. And remember, there's that guy with him who's got the white hair, who's his bodyguard.
Yeah, his bodyguard. Yeah,
his bodyguard, and Li Wu Jin basically contacts him himself, like he wants to get caught, and what's his name? Like Odesu's about to kill him, and then the bodyguard stops him, and then Li Wu Jin's like, if you kill me, you're never gonna find out.
Well, that's definitely the climax of the story.
No. That's when that's brave. No, because remember this, and then like, because he because Odesu thinks that Mido is suspicious, like how like why was she talking to this person? And she's like, oh, I only talked to him about sushi. Like, and then he like ties her up and leaves her, and then goes over to where this place is because his friend Juwan tells him like, oh yeah, he's traced it to this like a building that's like this building and this apartment, whatever it is, and he goes there, and then after they have this confrontation where Lee Woo-jin like tells him, if you kill me, I'm never, you'll never find out. I have a pacemaker. Remember, he shows him the pacemaker scar, and then he says like you better get back there because because you're not really good about protecting your women. You're leaving her tied up like that. And he goes back there and he sees like that dude who was running that apartment prison has her tied up and is like
basically
kill her.
Basically, it seems that they probably took advantage of her.
Yeah,
at some during the time they had her.
It does look like that. I would not put it past. It doesn't show it. Doesn't say it. But these don't seem like the type of guys who aren't above doing something like that. I mean, it's pretty terrible. So basically, so Lee Woo-jin gives him like a 5-day thing because he says basically he's gonna kill Mito in 5 days, if he doesn't. It was like he just gave him that deadline. Basically, I don't think there was any like if he doesn't do something or anything like that. He basically gave him like a 5 days to figure everything out before he would kill Mito, essentially.
Yeah.
And when he goes back there, there's all those dudes there, and he can't really fight him off, but they're about to kill him, or the guy's about to take his teeth out like he did to him, and he gets a phone call, from that other dude that basically says don't, or like the dude show up with a bunch of money and basically to pay him off to not do it. Because he wants Odesu, because Lee Woo-jin wants Odesu to figure this out.
Yeah.
Like, what is interesting is that, like, it's not one of those where you don't, like, there's, like, an evil mastermind who wants everything to be secret and everything to not be discovered, like his big plan not be discovered. No. He wants it to be discovered because it's so maniacal and so fucked up that he wants the person that he's torturing to figure it all out because it'll fuck him up even more. It's kind of really, really crazy.
It's kind of like Saw a little bit.
In a way,
it's
more psychological.
It definitely is, but in the sense that the villain, it's not your typical revenge story where, the main character is just going to go after the bad guy and the bad guy is trying to keep him from killing him. The bad guy wants something from our protagonist, and
what is interesting is that the stipulation was that Woo-jin would kill himself. Because he has the pacemaker with the button that would basically stop his heart and he would die. And if Woo-jin dies, Odesu never finds out why he was imprisoned, for 15 years or why any of this is happening to him. So that'll never happen. So that's why he gives him that 5-day stipulation. But after that is when they decide to like kind of run away and hide somewhat. And this is when they become more intimate physically, literally.
Yes.
They run away to someplace and they sleep together, and us watching it for the first time, not knowing anything, would be like, oh, it's a little
odd just for the fact that he's obviously.
Well, is it the age difference?
The age difference is odd. I mean, he's obviously at least double her age, probably.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, for those of you kind of dating, I guess, these things, I mean, the film starts off before he's in prison, starts off in 1988, and then fast forward 15 years and we get to 2003. So just keep those dates in mind. Keep that timeline in mind. And keep this scene in mind specifically. What is interesting is that it's in a... For as sex scenes go, it's a pretty erotic scene without us knowing the context. I mean, it's very sexually explicit, more so than you would see in a Hollywood movie.
It's not covered up.
You know what I mean?
It's not covered up.
And like the camera holds.
Yeah.
For a while.
It holds wide shots of them of the act. Yeah. Yeah,
and it's very sexual, content wise than most Hollywood movies. Not Hollywoodized at all.
No.
You know what I mean? And Stephen and I have talked about this, I think, when we talked about our censorship episode, where, like, the rest of the world doesn't have such a big problem with sex in their movies as does, Hollywood in the United States.
It seems Asian culture doesn't care about sex or violence. They'll put that shit all over their movies.
I guess so.
Yeah,
and because this movie has both.
Yeah,
and so they're intimate for the first time, and they're kind of in like that state of somewhat bliss afterwards. It's a scene of like them just like sitting there, and she's like drying her hair, and it's like, oh, what a lovely, romance, I guess. And then, so that happens, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, but now is when Odesu discovers like who Woojin is. They go back to the old high school.
That, but what happens is they're laying in bed, isn't it, when they get gassed again? And then the people come into the bedroom while they're in that,
Oh, yeah, that scene is creepy AF. Yeah, and like, yeah.
So basically you're getting this idea that they're always, Soojin is always a step ahead. Like he knows where they're at, even though they think that they're away. So that room gets gassed, and they come in while they're knocked out and mess with them, and God, who knows? We don't know. We don't know what they really do. It's just a weird scene of them popping up, Yeah,
it's a really What we also learn. Yeah, and I think this is around the time where they receive like a present, and it's that dude's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's that dude's hand who like coincidentally just in the most recent scene was gonna kill Odesu, or at least knock his teeth out.
The guy that was the
guy who's running that prison, that incarceration apartment, and because Odesu said that he was gonna cut his hand off in the future, so he cuts his hand off, and the guy actually like suspiciously, I mean we kind of write it off, but suspiciously gets like a new apartment in prison place basically. And we're not quite sure. We're not quite sure how. It just kind of happens. So Odesu decides to like stay there with him, thinking he's protected because now, Woojin is this guy's enemy as well. So it's like the enemy of the enemy is my friend, that kind of stuff. But no, it's not. No, it's not. It really isn't. How do you think he got this building? Yeah. So this is when, but like I was saying, this is when they go to the old high school to go to look at the old like graduation like yearbooks and things like that, and this is when, but before this, I believe, is when they discover that they are being tracked somehow. There's like a tracking chip in his shoe that they discover, and they get rid of it, and that's important for like this next scene that I talk about here because. Odesu does figure out, who this guy is, and the fact that they were in high school at the same time together, and that this guy also had a sister.
Yeah.
And the sister's name is, I forgot what her name was. I'll have to look it up.
It ain't that important.
I want to say it's Lusa or something like that. It's something. It's not important, but you have to know that this guy had a sister who was relatively, close to age with him. So yeah, it's Lee Sua. That was her name, Lee Sua. And so he calls up his friend Juan, and he's like, do you remember this? Do you remember Lee Woo-jin? Remember that he had a sister? I'm looking at the yearbooks right now, and for some reason her picture's been like removed. For some reason, like they she's in pictures and they like cut her head out of it and stuff. I'm like, what yearbook does that? But apparently, like Odesu like left after like his third year or something and went to Seoul and went to another school, and he wasn't here for when like she passed away. Like she died, I think like she drowned in a river or something, and there was like all kind of like how did like was there like. She was by herself, so it wasn't ruled as like a murder or anything. It was ruled like a suicide, and people were always wondering why she committed suicide. Was she pregnant? Was this and that, all the kinds of stuff. But the most important part is that she died, and Ju Huan is talking to him out loud, and he's like saying, "Oh yeah, she was, he basically like denigrated this now deceased girl by saying like, oh yeah, she slept around, she did this, she did that, and all that. And the camera pans while he's doing it, like there's a wide shot of him like sitting there relaxing on the front of the computer, and he's like, oh yeah, she was this, she was that, blah blah blah. And the camera just pans over to Wu Jin is literally in the opposite computer, just like listening to this, and then of course he hears this, he goes over and kills Ju Huan, and he talks to him over like the phone. He's like, if you didn't get rid of your surveillance, I wouldn't have to do this. Blah 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 blah, blah. And that's the end of that guy. Until we see him in a flashback form, though.
To be honest, there are scenes in this movie that are sickly funny. Like you shouldn't laugh at them.
That may be one of them. To be honest, that's kind of
it's kind of one of the moments that you shouldn't laugh at, but it's kind of funny because of how it goes down. And this guy seemingly, like I said, is always a step ahead. He was there to kill his friend over the phone. It just
you just hear some scream, like being stabbed or choked to death. The guy was kind of an ass anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
But see, he hears him, but then this is when we go into like, there's a moment later on where he goes and he sees somebody who I think was at school with him at the same time. She's like in a salon or something like that, and he keeps like staring at her crossed legs. And someone walks in and he stares at their knees, and then this is when we kick into a flashback of when he was in high school. Ode-su was in high school, and he was actually talking to Lee Soo-ah. He was like hanging upside down, smoking a cigarette. I think it was like his last day or whatever, and he was like trying to impress her by doing some acrobatic stuff on some things outside. Anywho, she was riding a bike and whatnot, and they have a conversation, like just a regular conversation. She's reading a book, and this is when we get like this is a key flashback here, is where he discovers that Lee Soo-ah and her brother were having a, how do you want to phrase
infidelity?
Incestuous relationship.
That's the word I meant. Incestuous, yeah.
Incestuous
not infidelity.
Relationship. And Ode-su sees them in some type of part of the school, some place that has broken windows, I guess.
Yeah.
And once again, the film doesn't shy away from showing, incredibly, what we would say, uncomfortable sexual scenes, I guess, where like they're goofing around, they're playing around, and then it turns sexual, and the camera doesn't pan away. If anything, the camera zooms in. Yeah. The camera really lingers, and yet again, it's that whole like sexuality is shown differently, and even sexual taboo that this is shown differently in different parts of cinema across the world. And it's done for, I guess, shock value, but it's also done to really show the sense of intimacy between these two siblings, which not really something you ever really want to say out loud, but that's what this movie is depicting. And he sees them, and they find that he sees them. Like she has a mirror that she's holding up while they're having this sexual encounter. And she's kind of, she's moving, and she sees him through the broken window, and he runs away. But they know that they know that he saw them. And so, basically, before Ode-su leaves, he tells Ju Huan about it, and he tells Ju Huan not to say anything. But of course, the guy says something, and then rumors start, and things go crazy. Things get out of control because how the way young people are. Young people are, especially teenage years. The teenagers are terrible to one another. They just are, and it's just, and she ends up killing herself. At least that's what we assume happens, and basically that's what Ode-su believes is why Woo Jin, captured him and put him in prison and all that kind of stuff for something that he actually doesn't remember until right now.
Yeah.
And I find that even more interesting is when we get to like this final, because we're getting to the climax now. After this is pretty much when Odesu goes to his penthouse. You know, he leaves Mido, they have an embrace, and they have a very interesting conversation. And this is when he like joins forces with like, you know, that dude, and he leaves her there, which I would have never. That's the one thing about that situation. I'm like, there's got to be safer places for you to put, you know, this person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This person that it's obviously important to you.
Well, he's
in the hands of your captor for 15 years.
He's an insane
you know what I mean?
dude, so he ain't really thinking straight.
Yeah, by this point, vengeance is really consumed him. He's no longer. Yeah, like he's human, but man, vengeance is kind of what drives him now, and it's really, you know, like that whole monster thing. He's a monster now. You know what I mean? So he goes to this penthouse to confront Wu Jin, and he's trying to get to the penthouse, and he needs like a code, and he just can't figure it out. And then just by happenstance, Wu Jin and his bodyguard walk in, and like they do the code, whatever it is. I think it's like 0604 or some nonsense number. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out. But so they go up to the penthouse, and of course they get up there, and then Wu Jin says, you know, get him, and like two bodyguards try to fight Odesu, and Odesu basically kills both of them pretty easily. He kills them actually by, because he created like a shank or a shiv with the toothbrush.
Yeah.
That were at the place where they were staying, because there was an interesting kind of just like when they were saying their goodbyes, like they for some reason kept cutting to the toothbrushes in the cup. And I'm like, why do they keep cutting to that? and then of course that pays off later by him using a toothbrush to stab both of these guys basically. So he does that, and I guess like Wu Jin has like a shower, and he's getting dressed and stuff. Very casual, very Lex Luthor-esque. I'll tell you that. He's very like that type of like a master genius manipulator. But one thing we didn't tell you is that this guy is super rich.
Yeah.
Like he's uber rich, and while he's doing that is Odesu tells him, you know, you were sleeping with your sister, and like thinking that's the reason why.
He thinks
he's been doing.
He thinks that him, you know, sending that rumor about was what is the reason he imprisoned him, which is, you know,
which is possible. It's true.
It's the truth.
It's the reason why his sister ended up, you know, dying, is because of that. You know, that was the kind of the Kickstarter off. If he basically the whole like you talk too much, like if he never
that's what he was talking about. Yeah,
that's what he was referencing. But what we learn is the master plan that Wu Jin went through to do all this, and the extra icing on the cake,
his vengeance on him.
Yeah, his vengeance on him. And man, it's really, what is so interesting is that it just shows that vengeance, you know, creates more vengeance, and it's just a cycle of violence, and it's just never ending.
Yeah, it's gasoline on the fire, man.
And it's just like this idea. What breaks the chain of vengeance is forgiveness, which is something that is very hard for many people to do. Some people just don't want to forgive and move on. Some people just do not have that in them to do it, and it's really, really tough. And especially when it results in the loss of a loved one, especially someone as close as he was to his sister, not in that really taboo manner, but as well as just, you know, a sibling and someone who's really important. That's really, you know, drives someone to do crazy, crazy things. And this guy clearly had the means to do crazy, crazy things. But what we learn about his whole orchestrated plan is that it wasn't only capturing Odesu and holding him for 15 years. It dealt with hypnosis.
Yes.
And apparently all of this was orchestrated through hypnosis, because that woman who we saw that hypnotized him on his last time in the prison also apparently showed up a bunch more times and did a bunch more hypnosis, and not only hypnotized him and planted things in his mind, but also planted things in Mido's mind as well. And this is when things take a turn, Stephen. Take a turn to another level.
Yes, there's a photo album
he's like, oh yeah, he's got a gift for him.
Yeah, there's a gift.
And so it's the photo album that was quote unquote stolen when his wife died, but things have been added to it.
Yes.
So he's going through it.
Yeah, he sees his family, he sees his daughter.
He's like, oh, like little daughter,
you know,
wife,
blah, blah, blah.
Sad,
and then it starts to show.
And then, oh my goodness, it's getting closer to today. It's getting
Yeah.
closer to modern day. And then he gets to, like, the final photo he sees, and it's Mito.
Yes.
Mito is his daughter.
And
that's the big
then
twist.
There's pictures of him having sex with her. And there's, yes.
And then there's also, later on, there's audio.
There's audio.
That they took of it as well,
Yeah.
which the guy just plays just to further taunt him as he walks out
yes.
of the place. But this, of course, sends him into a complete and utter rage, and he takes the scissors that he was using to open up the package, and he tries to attack Li Wujin, but his
bodyguard
steps in, starts throwing him around. There's a great, like, it keeps cutting to him being thrown through, like, glass objects, like just him falling on glass objects, falling through glass objects. The guy, like, throws him through, like, a glass thing, and then finally, like, for some reason, like, the window breaks, which I always thought was kind of weird. I'm like, how did that happen? But anyway, it happened.
Yeah.
But the only, like, shot that Odesu gets in on this guy is he stabs him in the ear with the scissors. And you see, like, the guy's ear starts bleeding and his eyes start going crazy. And it's like, yeah, his brain is probably punctured. It's not looking good. But he can't hear. But he can't hear that Wu Jin is telling him to, like, you know, let him go, stop.
Yeah.
So Wu Jin goes up and shoots his bodyguard in the head. The guy's dead.
Yeah, he's not done. He's not done with him.
No, he's not done. There's more to do. Basically, Mito does not know about this revelation that we've just learned about, and Odesu's just learned about, and Odesu really wants this not to happen. Like, he's begging this guy not to reveal to him, because what has been revealed to Odesu is that the dude that he for some reason trusted, the Mr. Park guy who ran that prison, is also in on it as well. Like, the guy, like, Wu Jin says, like, how do you think he got his new building? I bought it for him. Yeah. His hand was bought for. You know what I mean?
And at the same,
like, he's got. I'm assuming a copy of that album or something like that, because we never see what's in that box that he's presented to her. That he's going to present to her. You know what I mean? So.
And at the same time, we've gotten a flash over to where she's back in the apartment. She tries on them wings that she was gonna get.
Yeah, right around, there's a cross cut right around the time where it's revealed that it's his daughter, and she puts on the wings.
That was going to be her present, yeah.
That was going to be her present when she was forced. Real fucked up.
Yeah, it's really fucked up.
And then, so he pleads with him not to do it, but then he also, like, he's frantic, like, delirious. I'm telling you, this guy's acting in this moment is so effing crazy.
He's, like laughing under a handkerchief.
He's like pleading with him, but he's also cursing him out at the same time. He's just, like, really frantic, like true to life frantic, delirious.
And then he tells him, he's like, you know, I told you I'd kill myself if I, you know, if you figured it out and got it all. And then he presses the button that's supposed to stop his heart.
Well, before that, Stephen, you want to mention that? He cuts his tongue.
Yeah, he does cut his tongue off, yeah.
Odesu cuts his tongue off because that's kind of metaphorical, the reason why this all started.
Well, he said he would do that if he would kill himself or something like that, right?
Yeah, he would do that if he didn't tell Mito.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't, and he's got, like, a rag stuffed in there. But then what's his face calls, and Wu Jin calls the guy and says, you know, it's you know, don't do it, and then he walks away. He's walking out to the elevator to leave the penthouse, and then, like you said, Odesu sees that little, like, remote control, and he's gonna press it to stop his heart, but he's pressing it. Nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And what I believe is that there was an earlier scene in which Wu Jin was on, like, an operating table in his penthouse, and I think they removed that pacemaker, or at least removed the mechanism in it that would stop his heart. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is what happened, or at some point he had it removed because he's pressing the button and nothing's happening. So what we get is there's a cut now to Wu Jin in the elevator, and it's going down, and we see a flashback to.
Well, I mean, no. When he hits the button, then the audio of the sex he had with that's what happens.
Yes, but as Wu Jin is going down the elevator, he flashes back. Don't you remember?
Yeah.
He flashes back to, like, he was at that bridge. He was at that river where his sister died, and he was basically holding her and preventing her from dying.
Just like the guy at the beginning of the movie.
Coincidentally, yeah. But what we also learned in that whole orchestration is that why his sister died, or why his sister tried to commit suicide, is all of the rumors that were started because of O'Day Sue made her believe that she was pregnant. Made her believe that she was pregnant by her brother of all people.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that because it was so psychologically embedded in her that biologically she began to have like the symptoms of a false pregnancy. So it made her believe even more that she was pregnant. You know what I mean? Like her menstrual cycle stopped, and her stomach began to swell and things like that, which I didn't know was an actual thing that could possibly happen. But apparently that happened to her, so it began to make her be, psychotic, basically, like having her believe that.
She was suicidal.
It probably made it even worse that, if it's her brother, it's going to get out that it's her brother. It's going to, it's going to be a whole thing. But it all started because of O'Day Sue. But now going back to him in the elevator, he's holding her and he's telling her, she wants to die, and he's trying to stop her, and then he ends up like just letting her go, and then she falls in the water, and that's it. And then what happens is he shoots himself in the head.
Yep.
And that's how Woo Jin dies, because he has no point of living anymore.
Yeah, his whole life has been about getting vengeance.
Getting vengeance. And once he doesn't have that anymore, his life is over. And it's really an interesting commentary on people consumed with that type of level of hate, of that level of vengeance, where it consumes their whole life to the point where, okay, what happens when you fulfill your vengeance?
Yeah.
What happens then? Is there any life after that? And for Woo Jin, there wasn't any. And he is now gone. He's now dead. His life is now over. Now, what happens with O'Day Sue? Mito doesn't know about this, about the real situation, but he does. How does he live with this? And what is interesting is one of the last things that Woo Jin said to him is basically like I was me and my sister were okay living like with each other like this. Like, how are you gonna be like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this, it's a lot of psychological games happening here. So what happens in a kind of epilogue is that apparently he
tries to get the...
Sometimes later, he finds that hypnotist lady. I think it's the same lady. And he tries to have, like, those memories removed from his head through hypnotism. And they're, like, in, like, the woods, sitting on these, like, really shitty chairs.
It's like, really weird. It makes no... It's very kind of surreal.
It's very, very surreal. And basically, what happens is she hypnotizes him. She's like, okay, look at this tree. This tree becomes a concrete pillar. Okay, so now you're going to see the O'Day Sue that knows about this, and then there's going to be an O'Day Sue that doesn't know about this. And the O'Day Sue that knows about this which is like the monster version of him.
Yeah.
It's basically like the corrupt part of him that knows this, horrific information, is going to walk away, but for every step he takes, he's going to age a year to the point where he just dies.
Yeah.
Don't worry, he's just going to die calmly, nothing whatsoever. So then he wakes up, and he's lying in the middle of this snow forest place, and Mito comes in and sees him, and she asks him, like, who were you talking to? And then the camera pans over to, like, footprints in the snow, and those two chairs set up, and then they're like one of the last shots, I think it is the last shot of it's him, like...
hugging her.
They're hugging, but it's just his face.
Yeah.
And then he smiles.
He it's like it's a painful smile.
And
yeah.
I know many people have like debated like, does he? Yeah, it's a painful smile, and you bring into question whether the hypnosis really worked, or is he still the same? Like,
yeah. And
that's the big question about.
It's very ambiguous.
Very ambiguous.
And it leaves you thinking about, like we said, this is the thematic trilogy. And then in this film, just, the idea of, there's just some things that, some things that happen to us in life that we can't let go. You can try to forget certain things, and I don't think he can ever forget what he did. No matter what kind of hypnosis there is, there's always going to be something that when he looks at her, he's going to be reminded. And that's what he has to live with for the things that he's done.
Yeah, it's a very
because of
bittersweet ending.
Because of his because he talks too much.
Yeah,
it shows you how much a small thing can have a big effect on people.
It really is. It just shows you, like we said, like there's no positive outcome here at all. It's really bad for everyone involved. Like, Mito has to live a life of basically lies now. Woojin is dead. Odesu may or may not remember all of, the hurtful truth that he has to live with now. And it's like, no one wins. It's just, you just end up, in the middle of the forest.
Not a bittersweet, not a bittersweet ending, a bitter shit ending.
Yeah, very much so. But that's Oldboy, and man, I don't even know if we did the movie enough justice to really give you the sense of the layering.
You just need to watch the movie. Yeah,
the filmmaking in this film I think is really, really good. I mean, he uses a lot of zooms.
He has some very interesting upward angles where he puts the characters in usually like corners of the camera instead of like centering them, or he has very interesting direction, very interesting cinematography. A lot of greens, a lot of
the color palette is very interesting.
Yeah,
it's a very like you were saying, greens and browns and red color palettes. I think it's done on purpose, probably. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past Chan-wook Park.
Filmmaker like him. Everything's done on purpose.
Yeah, and I mean, even the Odesu character, his name is in reference to Oedipus, for Oedipus Rex, the famous Greek like story that has incest in it.
Yeah.
But it also has a sense of tragedy, cyclical tragedy within it as well. And this film actually very much has a sense of cyclical tragedies within it, because it starts off with him being in a shitty situation and ends up with him in a shitty situation. And it really, really, what a fantastic movie
it is. But I think that...
But yeah, I highly recommend it. I also highly recommend the other films in Chan-wook Park's filmography, especially his Vengeance trilogy.
The Handmaiden. The Handmaiden's the other.
And The Handmaid. And, of course, Lady Vengeance as well. Thirst, I really like as well. Thirst is pretty good.
Stalker.
Yeah. Handmaiden, Stoker's really good. Handmaiden... Talk about a movie that's sexual, but that movie is sexual in a different way.
Yeah.
That movie's more about sexual liberation.
Yeah.
Sexual freedom. And this is more about perversion of sexuality.
Yeah.
That's the way I would describe the sexuality in Oldboy.
Yeah. But I think that's going to be it for our breakdown of Oldboy here. And, hey, Andrew, where can you be found?
You can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Capzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find this podcast's audio on Apple Podcasts, Podbean. And that will be it for this episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Thank you for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.